Hey everyone and welcome. We are Next Level Business Advisors and this is Business Stories of Success. If you want to break through and achieve your own business success by learning from other successful business owners, you're in the right channel. For more of our content, make sure you click subscribe and don't forget the bell icon so you're the first to be notified when new videos are added. Enjoy today's video.
Hello, hello, hello. You're with Marc Adams at Next Level Business Advisors, and I'm here with Mr. Matthew Schmidt from Peoplelogic. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Mark? Thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you for joining. I'm excited to have this conversation because when I asked you about your business industry, you didn't say technology, you said future of work. Whoa, that's heavy. That's heavy. So I'm excited just to understand a little bit more about you, your business, and about your vision or your story of success. So let's get right into it. Let me ask you, tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, you make a future of work sound far more sexy than it actually is. So um, kudos to you.
Thank you.
Little bit about me. I've been a lifetime entrepreneur. I started another company that we grew from two guys on a couch to about 50 people before we had a successful exit back in 2017. And I think I've always been someone that was, needed to do the startup world and needed to build companies and be able to solve problems. And startups just happened to be the best way to do that. I think I started my first company at 13. So it's, running a business, growing a business, being able to build something that solves problems for people is what I'm driven to do. And Peoplelogic is our latest incarnation of that. It came out of what we saw were the problems in growing a company as it begins to scale, and being able to use data to try to solve those problems and make it easier to grow businesses and do it more safely.
Okay, so that's pretty fantastic. Let me ask you this question. You said you started with two men on a couch and grew to 50. That's pretty fantastic. We'll get into that a little bit more probably. But let me ask you about this, your newest company, just so we can do our bookkeeping. If someone wanted to reach you, to get to know you, how would they find you?
Yep, if they search for Peoplelogic in Google or they go to peoplelogic.ai, they can get a hold of us or shoot me an email, matt@peoplelogic.ai. We're always happy to talk.
Okay, good. How long has this business been around?
We've been building Peoplelogic since late 2019. After our acquisition, I stayed around for about 18 months, got to see what life was like under private equity and how businesses, applied more resources to be able to scale. And but then it was time to transition out as those things naturally go, and decided to take a few weeks off and then get to work building this one. And we've been building the platform for about 2 years, I guess it's been, and first started trying to commercialize it this year, and have had some early successes and gotten quite a number of people using the platform so far this year, and are now about to launch our biggest revision probably in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting because the name of our podcast is Stories of Success. And you mentioned that you had a business before, two guys on the couch, had a successful exit. How do you define success?
That's a great question. I think it's different for everybody because, I think as we talked about the last time we chatted, it's everybody has their different barometer for what they need and what they want in terms of being successful. For some people, success can be freedom, from, whether that's freedom to do whatever you want in terms of how you work, or it's freedom and how you spend your time, or, maybe it's just freedom to never have to work again or never feel like you have to work again, for those people that, feel like that's what they're called to do. So, for us, it was the right time and the right amount of money and the right partners and finding a way to have it be a good outcome for our team and a nice place for them to land as we, look to transition to the next stage in the work that we wanted to do.
Nice, nice. So now you have that successful. You started Peoplelogic. Do you consider Peoplelogic successful? I know it's still early, but do you consider it successful?
I think we have seen some success. I don't know that I'm yet ready to call it successful, but we are at the very early stages. And so these are, every week has some different challenge, as you're well aware of running a business. Different challenges come with the week. And I've been very pleased with the success we've been able to get, the interest that we get from companies, the interest from investors, the insights we've been able to generate for companies that are trying to understand their organizational health and be able to, get out ahead of problems before they actually cause a serious impact on their business. And the technology and the team we've been able to build. We have a great team, and we get to come in every day and work on interesting problems and, be able to show that to the world. And so from that perspective, it's, there's been a lot of success. The rest of it will come if we do our jobs right.
I like that. I mean, that's what I think too. Like when it comes to, and we've been doing this podcast now for a while. And I think one of the first podcasts I did, I think the woman had started her business. She was only a couple months in. And I said, do you consider yourself successful? And she said, yes, I started it. Right. And so I was able to start. That's a success. So like success is something to me, it's constantly changing and flowing, and it's a journey. Right. So you're finding all these little successes as you go to your ultimate goal. So that's the fun part. At least for me, that's the fun part of business. There are some parts that aren't fun, like sitting in your basement on a lunch tray instead of your office because of a flood. But that's life. But I still find that things are successful. So let me ask you this question because it's interesting. You found success, as you were mentioning it, in multiple parts of your business growth right now. What have you done? How do you make success in these small areas possible? Because people are looking to learn from people who are successful like you to see how they can emulate that in their own businesses.
Yeah, I think, and there's a lot of different ways to answer that question. I think the first, you always have to be careful to measure yourself against about not measuring yourself against other people's successes. That's a slippery slope, and every business is different and has its own journey and path and timeline, right? And it's so easy these days to be able to hold yourself up against the things that you read online and decide you're not successful because this other business that's completely unrelated and has a different journey is seeing some measure of success. For me, it's about making sure that along the way each week we try to find some wins, and making sure that the team sees that the work that they're doing has an impact and is meaningful, because everybody wants to work on something meaningful and something that's going to make some difference in what we're doing. And so we try to surface the small wins along the way, even while we're building towards a much bigger success.
I like that. So do you share that vision, that mantra with everyone who works for you? Is that what your goal is?
Ideally, some days I forget. It's usually the conversations like this that bring me back to it, because it's easy to get lost in the day to day and the negative things that are happening around you, because it's so much easier as people to look at what's not going well, right? As business owners, we're conditioned to always be looking at the things that aren't going well and try to solve those. Whether it's a flood, or whether it's that this customer didn't stay with us, or whether it's that we didn't hit the milestone that we wanted to hit. but at the same time, we can't just be focused on this, because that's how the roller coaster gets you, and you get stuck down there in that trough of despair, and you have to come back out of it, look for the positive in the work you're doing, and make sure that you share that with your team, and get them to get into a habit of sharing positive things, which can be a really interesting challenge, because they're down in the weeds thinking about the individual work that they're trying to do. But at the end of the day, it's a team effort, and when it's more than one person on the team, you can't. It's my belief that we all play a critical part in the company's growth, and so it's everybody's responsibility on the team to contribute to the sharing of wins and losses, and the trying to rally the team. And while the CEO is certainly the chief cheerleader, it can't be only their responsibility, as the company is, particularly in very early stages.
Right. Yeah, I get that. That makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you this. I'm kind of digressing from my normal course, because you have a lot of experience in a lot of ways. So I think people can really benefit from these one-off questions, these ancillary questions. Do you have a process in which you inspire the people who work for you? Do you have a system in place? How do you do that? How do you inspire?
I don't know that we have we're a very small team right now. And so, while we were all remote, and distributed across, at least 4 different time zones, and
Wow.
3 countries right now. So it's for us, it's, making sure that we have those touch points, and making sure that we talk to everybody on the team every day. And, we're continually looking for ways to continue to drive that culture, and that enthusiasm. And, I wouldn't say that we've stumbled on any particular way just yet.
Okay. All right. It's interesting because you use that phrase culture, right? So culture actually directly influences retention, right? With a good culture, you're going to retain your people. Culture's bad, people walk. So I was wondering, what you've done for your culture, and you like having that touch point on a common, every day. It's a powerful one. Making sure that people recount or share the wins, I think is really powerful too. Morale is important, especially nowadays. So, I like those thought processes that you're sharing with us. Let me ask you this question, because you've done multiple businesses. What's one big mistake that you've made in your business journey that you'd care to share?
That's a great question. I think it is actually related to that idea of culture, and it's part of the genesis for where we, why we created Peoplelogic. Is it, you ignore the warning signs in your culture and in what the culture carriers are telling you at your own risk, right? And at different times, we didn't pay enough attention to that, and didn't pay enough attention to hiring great people and letting them run and do. And in this, it's probably been more than 10 years now, but that definitely slowed us down, right? And then also not having the visibility that we needed to be able to, feel comfort, and to also understand where there were potential risks, right? And that's really when we talk about the genesis of Peoplelogic, that was really at the heart of it, being able to understand where parts of the organization were unhealthy, and whether that's looking at it like, a team has a credit score for their org health, or whether it's looking at your organization through the lens of a CT scan, and being able to understand where you have problems and where you need to address them today. We lack that type of insight. And so the desire to be able to have that insight and understand where we needed to put our attention from a culture and energy perspective without having to do more surveys was really what led us to build Peoplelogic.
Wow. So your big mistake caused you to create a whole new company. That's amazing. I wish I were that brilliant. My big mistake just makes me cry and act like a little baby.
Yeah,
But that's
we will
good.
see whether that's whether I'm crying like a big baby will, that will probably determine the outcome at the end of
Okay.
this, and
Okay.
whether we're successful. So
I hear you. I hear you. But that's really cool. So with your mistake that you made in your journey, and you still had a successful business. That's the nice part about it, right? So the key takeaway for that, from that, for me, and hopefully for the listeners, is that we can have a business, make huge mistakes, big mistakes, maybe even something that might permeate the entire company, but still be successful. But smart entrepreneurs will take their mistakes, learn from them so they can become even better, right? So I really appreciate that you shared that with us, even as you had these, successes, and it spurred you on to something new. So Peoplelogic might be something that a lot of us will need as we grow our practice.
sure hope so. There's no way to not make mistakes. Businesses make mistakes all the time, right? And it's the trick is to not have any fatal mistakes. And what defines fatal is different for every business, just
Absolutely.
like success. But it's important to not let the mistake continue to drive towards that failure, right? And to be able to, catch it where you can, and be able to pivot that into a success, and to have that core, to have a core team that's really motivated by the mission and the vision of the company, and to, be able to rally around that in tough times, and drive the business forward.
Oh, I like that. I like that. And when your team is in line with you, that makes a lot of sense. So when you hire, you must hire not just on skill set, but on a mindset, personality. Is that some of the things that you think about?
Yeah, right now our biggest, when we look for people to join the team, and granted we're not, hiring a lot of people just yet. It's really important right now for us to find people that believe in the problem that we're trying to solve. So skills are somebody who has the skill set and has maybe done a particular skill somewhere else won't be as successful with us right now, unless they are also completely bought into the problem that we're solving and the direction we're going, and the bigger picture of helping organizations be more healthy. So that's a big part of what we look for. Personality is also important. They have to be a good fit with the team, but at the same time, diversity also gives you better insights. And so we need to be able to have enough different perspectives that we don't get tunnel vision as we're trying to choose where to go next.
That's smart. That's really smart, right? If everybody's looking at the same thing the same way, boy, you can really have disaster. So that makes sense. Let me ask you this question as the CEO or the owner, right? What do you think is the single most important quality needed to be a successful business owner?
I think so there's a couple of things. Whether if there's a single one, it's probably persistence. I think beyond that, I think it's important to have people you can lean on to be able to weather those ups and downs that come with the business. And so whether that's a co-founder, or whether that's a partner in life, or whether it's good team members, although that can be risky, it's important to have that support group. And sometimes it's mentors, sometimes it's coaches. Everybody has a different way they like to address that. But I would say persistence and tenacity is probably something that would be the single most important thing if you're starting to build a business, because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. And most businesses, particularly tech companies, most don't succeed. The vast majority don't succeed. I think it's as high as 90+% fail by year 5. So it's a very high percentage of businesses that just simply don't succeed.
Wow, I didn't know it was that high in the tech industry. That's pretty amazing, actually. Okay, let me ask you this question, because you alluded to coaches and mentors. Do Do you feel that you've had any coaches or mentors that's contributed to your success?
I've certainly had mentors along the way that have helped me be more successful, and certainly, I try to devote a portion of my time, both in terms of talking to other founders that are further along in the journey, and also being able to impart my knowledge into founders that are maybe earlier in the journey or on their first company. Um, Working with coaches has never been something that has been particularly helpful to me. But that's probably more a personal failing than a failing of the coaching model. So I can't, I can't say that that's, for some people it works really well, right? And helps them have a place to go and a person to talk to help them, figure out when they need to, make a change.
Nice. You said that you talk to other founders, what have you. Do you do like mastermind groups, things like that?
No, it's more informal than that.
Oh, okay.
Unless a mastermind group is sitting having a beer down
Hey,
the
that's
street.
the best kind. The best kind. Yeah. One of my clients, he's a real good guy. It's kind of interesting because I do advisory work for him. But then as we're chatting, he's like, yeah, he's very like he's an outgoing guy. So some of his biggest vendors, the people who he worked that like are are his vendors that he buys from, he's hanging out with them all the time. And a lot of those guys are established. He's like, hey, we were sitting down having a beer, talking about this or talking about that, and he gets so much advice from so many different sources. It's amazing. I like it because to hear to your point, right? You were talking a little bit earlier about if everybody in the firm had the same exact outlook, right? You could quickly run ashore. So to hear these multiple viewpoints from these different people is really, really cool. And I like the fact that you found founders. I wouldn't even know how to find a founder and then have these conversations. Is really, really cool. That's why I asked you about the mastermind. Even in my industry, I don't know. I know a few, but we don't like chat as much as I should probably, to get their thoughts on things. I kind of go the coaching route, I think, because so I have a coach and I go the coaching route because I'm too introverted, for want of a better phrase, to go out and find people who are like me to say, hey, let's chat. So interesting how we can find.
It's an interesting dynamic. I through networking, I'll find a founder, but through a coach, I'm less likely to actually open up. So to somebody who's actually been through the problems and the challenges, I'll happily talk about the challenges we're having. But to somebody who's one-on-one with me in a coaching dynamic, I'm less likely to probably share struggles. So, to each their own, right?
Yeah. It's very interesting. And I'm the same way. I think I open up more with my coach. He'll dig all into my heart. And I'm like, this is but that's what they're supposed to do, right? They're supposed to get to the bottom to help you to grow. So
yes.
Cool. So now you've been through multiple startups. You said startups is your thing. What advice would you give to a brand new business owner?
I think the biggest bit of advice is to make sure that you smooth out the ups and downs, at least in terms of the impact they have on you. That's probably my biggest advice. And, the other bit of advice is that it is okay to fail. I should probably take my own advice on that sometimes, but it is, not every. Sometimes the success, to your point earlier, was in the starting, right? That was the journey, and that was the goal, was to start that company, and to have that person set out their intent was to start that company. Whether it's ultimately successful, the fact that they started it was probably the biggest hurdle for them. And so, smooth out those edges, because the ups and downs will, can be a killer. And two, sometimes it's not the right time for the business. It may not be that the business isn't the right business, but it is entirely possible that you're too early to a business. And so, sometimes it's just not in the cards at this time, at this moment. is going to be successful. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't, start something else down the road, or even keep trying. It's like I said, the journey can take, a lot of overnight successes are actually, 10 and 15-year journeys. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So don't give up if you're listening. If
yes.
one idea doesn't fail, try again. Right. That's kind of the mindset of
Yes.
entrepreneurs in a lot of ways. And even business owners, you might have something you're doing, you're trying a new campaign. I call them campaigns. And that might just be lousy. And you say, okay, well, that stinks. Now what? Come up with something else. So you use
most of the things you try aren't going to work.
Yeah,
you just have to keep trying.
Yeah, you said persistence, and that's exactly what it is. Be persistent. I'm going to ask you one final question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
All right. If you can go right back, right before you started your first business, what advice would you give yourself?
I would say, if I could give myself some advice, it's a lot harder than it looks on TV. So
that is true.
It's going to be a longer journey. There's going to be more ups and downs, and it's a lot harder than it looks on TV. So it's that doesn't mean it wasn't worth it, but it is a lot harder than it looks.
It is, isn't that true? And it's amazing how TV. I guess those are good editors, because they cut out all the hard stuff, and the next thing you know, I look at Marcus Lemonis, and within 1 hour, he's turned the entire company around, and boom!
Exactly.
Like, wow, I need to get Marcus in here tomorrow, but it might be a lot more harder than just what we see on TV. I like that.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, Matthew, thank you so much for giving us some of your time and sharing some of your insights with us. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure when our listeners hear this, they'll get some really good value about how to be persistent, how to not give up, and it's okay to fail. Thanks again.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark, and I really appreciate it.
Looking forward to watching you on your new path to success with Peoplelogic.
All right. Have a great one.
You too.